So I am with another really good friend of mine. I haven't done a chat with George for a while. We've been chatting just before this, but hello, George, again.
Hi, Khalid. Nice to see you.
Always good to see you. Really interesting energy with you. I like how you're honest. That's why I like talking to you up front. And the spiritual kind of, when I say spiritual, you got a sense of, yeah, that feels right. That's true. And
Yeah,
so there's less messing around, just get to the truth faster that way. So especially if you're like hyper materialist, it's hard for you to see the obvious. So if you got a spiritual, I mean, you just listen more inside about how you feel, what's being wrong. You don't pretend to yourself so much. We get to answers faster and less struggle in life as well, when you know what you want. So we're going to be talking about how to always be passionate. Me and you have been talking about that for a while, even just before this conversation, and you give me ideas about more things I need to talk about. Um, so I'm a Muslim. I do happiness classes at Speaker's Corner. I'm moving more towards live stream because I'm moving to another country where I won't have Speaker's Corner there. And I might try to start a few things. There's a lot of interesting people there where I'm going. Jordan, but we'll see. Don't know what's going to happen. But I'm talking to a lot of international people and people in the same country. Uh, what do you want to say about yourself, George?
I'm a Christian, but not the typical Christian you'd think. Um, Lebanese, but born in London. I'd call myself a hybrid. I think I'm like 50% Westerner, 50% Eastern. So I got a good mix, and that allows me to see both points of views. And one thing I've realized is not one side is totally correct about anything. I think the East is a bit too conservative, and the West is a bit too loose and a bit too liberal.
I get what he's saying because I lived in Jordan, and as a British person, I like being on time and everything. I'm really left brained, as it were. This is how it should be. When I moved to Jordan for a few years, I developed a lot, got a lot more in touch with nature and how to be like a kind human being. I love the hospitality. Just can't tell you about it. It's just like you feel more alive when people are just giving to each other. So I get what you're talking about, basically. I mean, there's something good in each part, good in different perspectives, different cultures and ways of living. So let's just blurt out the top things that. Um, so being passionate, most people get it upside down. That's why people find being passionate difficult. And when I talk about when I do my happiness classes, yes, it's based on Islamic ideas, which are often common to many other religions, right? But I don't just stick there. I use psychology and very basic ideas. Like if you talk to me, you're going to hear the same thing over and over again. And that's good because that means it's simple. Okay. So I do like to start with the Holy Quran because usually when I start talking, I start forgetting all the things that I plan to say, right? So at least I'll get that done, right? And but as usual, when I say something, it's going to sound like what's going on? How on earth is that going to help, right? Verse of the Holy Quran says, "But for those who fear to stand before God, who will judge them," in, I put in brackets, "there are two gardens, that is paradise in this life and the next." I'll just say that's chapter 55, verse 47. And most people have no idea what that has got to do with anything. So I'm going to start breaking it down. So the Arabic word for human is insan. Am I saying it right?
Insane, yeah.
Insan, yeah. Okay. And one of the meanings behind it is to be forgetful or neglectful. Have you ever heard that?
Insa.
Insa. Sorry, yeah, I'm not very accurate because I think you're, yeah,
Insa means
and
forget.
yeah, so it's connected to the word insan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you might say, what's that got to do with being passionate. So, and what's it got to do with the verse I just mentioned about basically fear of God? How does that help you have paradise or happiness in this life and the next? Which is happiness must be related to being passionate, right? And that is, we forget what we're here for, what we're doing in this life. We forget, I'll tell you one big thing we forget, which is everybody goes through, which is death. That we're not going to be here forever. And somehow we pretend to ourselves we're here forever. Okay. And so we lose sight of what's important. And so here's how that verse helps. It's in the Bible as well. There's I'll talk about that in a second. This thing I'm talking about. It's what fear of God does is snaps you out of your stupidity. It snaps you out of your sleep of thinking life is about getting more and more money and forgetting that you're going to die. Like the greater your realization that is at the end of this, you're going to meet God, then you're going to start making better choices. And when you make better choices, your life is going to be perfectly in line with your design. And so God doesn't want you to have a boring life. God doesn't waste time doing boring stuff, right? God's got an amazing plan for you. Okay, that's just logical. If you believe in God or not, whatever, it just makes sense. So God is like an amazing creator. Doesn't waste his time, right? And if you look at the stories of prophets of God, Jesus, Muhammad, they do epic stuff, epic, not ordinary lives, right? So that fear of God snaps you out of your short-term ego thinking. Ego thinking is, oh, what's my mum gonna think? Because that's what we really fear. We really fear we've got 1 or 2, 3 people who we care, we fear their opinions, and everything goes, according to that. That's a dumb way to live your life. I mean, what do you think? Let's get you more involved. Like, is there somebody whose opinion you care about that that kind of stops you from doing things you really want to do?
I think like there's my wife, but that's more I consider her opinions because she is my wife and I need to.
No, yeah, I was thinking you might say that, but like fear somebody's opinions that they don't really control you.
Well, yeah, what I don't like, and this affects me a lot indirectly, is that my mom really cares about what society or the people back home in the village 100%. Think, and because of that, I get pressured. Like, for example, when I was walking around topless in Lebanon, my mom was getting multiple people calling her, telling her, what's your son doing? You can't be leaving him out on the streets like this. And, this stresses her out and she really gets affected by what the society, says. And back in the past, that's how it was. It was society that sort of governed itself, and how people thought about you is what mattered.
And it's not even the past. That's what a woman is. A woman, it's good to understand human nature. Men's nature and women's nature are different. They function completely differently. They learn completely differently. So women are more social, and they're built to care more about what other people think. It's like built into their nervous system, right? They even learn, like, okay, the other day my wife was like, okay, I'm gonna meet the Khalifa, like our spiritual leader, on Sunday. And it's like, I was thinking, I'm gonna wear a really colorful Hawaiian t-shirt. Everybody else basically wears black just because they want to blend in and be behaved and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, no, you can't do this. And then she talks to her friends, and her friends go, yes, it's cool. Why not? Like, why are people wearing boring clothes? And she comes back and says, yeah, it's all good. It's just how women operate. They have so we say bad things. We say this thing called like groupthink is a bad thing. Maybe it's a combined intelligence that they operate in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And like some people insult not being logical, like women are emotional, but they operate in a different process that is God has made them like that, and they operate using a different system. And I think they operate on a sort of not just to call it purely emotional is insulting. I think they work in a sort of the proof is in the pudding. I think, you know what I mean? Like they go, oh, those relationships are working. Forget all the logic. That works. I'm going to follow that system. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So that kind of stuff. So and so maybe that seems like a sidetrack, but I think knowing yourself and knowing human beings and how we operate, that is key to finding a passion. Because another, I'm just going to throw things in. So fear of God is the, you know, like God is the ultimate power. Like if we fear God, we've stopped fearing everybody else. That's the mechanism. You were right. It's okay. It's like, so when you fear God, you don't fear anything else. It's because everybody else is puny in between in comparison. Yeah. So that if you can have that awareness of you're going to meet God, then you're less likely to do stupid stuff you don't want to. You're right. Like you look like you're under pressure to move or something.
No, I'm fine. Fine. It's my wife here. She's asking me stuff.
Okay, that's
Oh,
all right. It's all right. We're chill. We're chill. She can, yeah. I can keep talking. I'll avoid. You know, if you need to whatever do whatever right at the same time, you can just listen and whatever. So one is the like we don't want to do things we want to avoid making bad short-term decisions on stupid ideas like our short-term ego, which is based on what other people think, you know, keeping up with the Jones, buying stuff you don't need. That's really self-destructive, right? If you can avoid that to some extent, you don't change it immediately. You don't change as a human being in one day. It's like one step at a time, a little bit better at a time. Okay. So if you're not buying tons of really expensive things, then you're a lot more free to follow what you really want to do. Otherwise, you're captive to all these expensive things. You have to do more jobs to pay for stuff you don't want, to impress people you don't care about, etc. Right? So that's one side. I'm going to start throwing different things in. Right? So the other thing that was really powerful for me, and I think, yeah, is this idea of living every day as if it's your last. Why is that powerful besides just sounding cool? Okay, so why? There's two things. There's one is that we put off happiness for the future. Like one day we'll be successful. One day we'll be happy. One day things are all perfectly lined up and be all right. So that can be a forever thing. You can keep doing that. It's a bad way of, and then you're deciding not to be happy today, and you don't know how to be happy today. The other thing is this is really also really important. The other thing from the same idea, and that is there's two more things actually. It's like this. If you're really, the more you're close to death, the more alive you are.
Yeah.
And the flip of that is people who think that life is just going to drag on and it's going to be the same old every day. It's really depressing.
It is. I think depression is moving towards death.
Yes. Okay, I'll put yes, death. Okay, not literal death. I think depression is a death of your spirit. Yes, we said at the same time, right? Because what you're doing. So I'm going to jump back into the psychologist thing, just in case people think that, oh, this is just religious people talking, right? Viktor Frankl says happiness is from meaning. That's how simple it is. Okay, so if you just do meaningless things just to survive, because when you're just surviving, you're not doing things for a cause. and you're not sacrificing for the cause either, a cause, you kind of have to make an effort. If like you're just like, oh, there's like, yeah, if you're not, yeah, I think I'll get back to the idea of sacrifice in a bit. But yeah, if you're just existing, then you start feel like you're dying every day, and then you'll hate yourself. This is why there's so much depression in the West, despite people having tons of stuff and no danger of death. Just getting worse. This is why lots of really rich people just do lots of mental things, just to be happy. I think like a lot of people are thinking about the billionaires in the submarine. Like, what were you doing? Like, really? Do you know what I mean? Have you heard about the,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But I also do think with there is a human thing to want to explore and do things that very few people have done, like go to unvisited places. Like I was recently watching a video about the Amazon and how most of it hasn't been really like researched by archaeologists and stuff. And there's a lot of like hidden cities underneath, and it made me feel like wanting to just go to the Amazon and just explore these like deep
what you're
forests.
saying is really important, and why a lot of people don't have passion. Again, everything I'm going to say is, I think the general theme is everything that you think is passion is the opposite. Okay, so a lot of people watch videos and go, I wish I was somewhere else, my life was completely different. And I'm going to put it this way, because I'm not saying you don't do that, but I'm going to tell you how those people who are doing, with the people you're watching, how do they end up there doing those cool things that they really care about. I'm going to start off with this really simple thing. The big things are the small things. Again, that sounds like a kind of a cliche, just sound to be cool, whatever it is, right? So it's the small things that we really, really enjoy. If you think back to your life, or over all the things, like when you bought a really expensive car, probably wasn't like what you thought it would be like, right? But if you really just without filtering, just like what, like if I try to filter, like not filter, well, what I did enjoy yesterday, jumping on a bouncy castle yesterday, actually. Okay, so what I'll tell you, it was Eid yesterday, by the way. It's like the Muslim Christmas, right? And we had a bouncy castle, and none of the adults were going on. And I was like, I was just trying to get all the adults to jump on, like, just enjoy yourself. And that's kind of part of being passionate, like being free to do what you want to do and not being scared. And I was wearing I was only the one with like a colorful t-shirt on and stuff like that. Everybody else was black, and they were like, this is what we're supposed to do, and they know that. They're like, do you know what I mean? All the men were like, they're all grown-up men with all the money, whatever they want, but they're just like behaving like they're supposed to, and they know that. They 100% know it, right? But one or two people joined me, and when after they jumped on the bouncy castle just to kind of explore this kind of thing, we had like some cool conversations, like, I want to do this, and I think this, and I dream this, and it's like just like let go for a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So yeah, big things are the small things. And so yeah, and I said, how do people end up doing those cool things that you watch in the videos? They don't. Yeah, some people are a bit self-destructive and they do it in big steps. But what the people who really, how they really get there are lots of millions of small steps, and it's not just millions of small steps. It's just like there would have been. They love the process. They love what they're doing, and it takes years. And they have no. Those people have no money. Mostly, they will have no money. These kind of really, really cool things means you're going to be really poor.
yeah,
Like you just survive. You don't have a toilet or something in the Amazon or whatever it is. I've seen some of these videos where people live in the middle of nowhere, right? It's really tough, right? But they're totally happy with it because they really enjoy the thing. They don't need the perks on the side. They don't need a comfortable seat, whatever. In fact, you need the comfortable seat and all the fancy furniture to compensate for how much you hate your life doing the things you don't want to do. Yeah, and this is not just making it up. Go on, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I agree. I also think we don't need these things like this extra soft bed or whatever. No, you only think you need it after you have it. But I guess thinking about it, like sleeping on the floor, right, hard floor is actually good for your spine. It's better for your sleep. But because we've been brought up in a place where we sleep in soft mattresses, I guess our body gets weaker, and then we're just not able to take, just the natural way of sleeping, and we
In
just
fact,
become weaker as
yeah, in
humans.
fact, I had a massive problem in the beginning of the pandemic or halfway through the pandemic because my life got so cushy that I was working from my bedroom, sitting down. And I never knew that was a problem. I was like, oh my God, why am I so old now? I'm walking like an old man. And now, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm actually on a standing desk. So I'm
Oh,
standing.
nice.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
to.
I had the same problem. I still have that problem now, where especially after pandemic and recently now as well. Through lack of movement, I go outside and then things that used to be easy and natural, like walking, suddenly start to hurt and become a struggle.
Hmm. So it's interesting. That's really interesting. Sometimes we feel like what I think what we're talking about here is like we sometimes think discomfort is an option, but actually sometimes discomfort is becomes
Si-
necessary even
or it's a
almost.
symptom of of something wrong. You know.
Yeah, there's this yeah. So people can. I'm not even sure if I'm putting it the right way, but hopefully people get it. It's like sometimes you go, "Oh, my life is by default comfortable," but when you get too comfortable, you get fat, you get all sorts of things. Yeah, there's lots of feedback to tell you when there's something wrong. I think a lot of people. This is one of the things I'm gonna jump into, which I didn't think I was going to talk about, but this is really good. So in this modern day kind of spirituality, you've got these Buddhism, which is not real Buddhism. It's kind of like just white people who hijacked the religion in the West, right? And this is the thing they say is really bad for you. They say when you've got pain, just watch your pain. Have you ever heard of this? And let it go past. Have you ever heard this kind of rubbish?
No, no, it
Just
sounds like
watch,
rubbish though.
but it's so common. I hear it all the time, right? Just like don't just breathe and watch your pain, watch your emotions, let it go through, right? No. Your emotions are for a reason. They're telling you you're messing up big time. If you're depressed, it's your fault. Learn from it. This could be the key to your happiness. I even get excited about people who are telling me they're depressed because like okay, you finally hit rock bottom, you're finally waking up. This is an opportunity for you to finally learn because when you're a bit too comfortable, you think so we're all right. I'll carry on doing my
I,
boring
I,
job
I
and my
guess
boring ways.
I would just rebut that a bit and say it really depends. Like, a lot of sort of my depression. When I got depression, a lot of it was self-inflicted, right? And that was my fault and mine to deal with. But there are things that happen to people, like let's say loss of life or sick illness, cancer, that is not really their fault. Um, but I agree that depression is you need to find a way to deal with that. And usually if it's a fixable problem, then it's just about fixing that problem. But if it's unfixable, like the death of someone, then you just need to do the things that make you naturally as a human, more natural. So working out, being out in the outdoors, talking to people, the things that we are meant to be doing that we're losing in this Western society.
Hmm. So I'm going to tell you how you're wrong.
Go on.
Okay. So what it is, sometimes we go, oh, those poor people in Africa, this and that. We have these imaginations of what it is for another person. Or cancer, it's oh poor guy got cancer. It's so unfortunate. And you might think, of course it's unfortunate, right? There's so many people who turn their lives around in those situations. Okay, there's a term for it, like things that force you into making changes that you were unwilling to make. There's all these fancy terms for this, right? Okay, so try not to imagine some other hypothetical person's life that you don't really understand. Because in reality, when I've looked into or talked to people in all these different perspectives, what you find is that they are, all those things that happen to them, I will say they're not accidental. Like, you get cancer, it's not accidental. And actually, it's to your fault a lot of the time as well. There's a lot of, like, cancer is more prevalent in the West, by the way, right? And there's so many things that you do that are your fault, and the things that don't seem to be your fault, or you don't really have control over, they all are there. They're not accidental. I mean, I'm going to say it's really hard to prove all of these things, but you can prove it in some logical way, which is, if you look at the world and how it operates, it's an incredible life support system. This is how I see it. This is what convinced me more and more. Okay, I mean, there's two things that convince me more and more that there are no accidents, and having the idea of there being no accidents really understands how you can be passionate. Because I'm going to talk about this in a second. Like, passion, you don't have to search for it, it comes to you. But I'm going to talk about that in a minute once I explain this thing, right? So if you understand the big picture, the macro, which is, look at the world. Like, if you don't contemplate in the world, you think it's just stuff happening. Air just comes from nowhere and everything just happens, and the sun, whatever. But that's just like ignorance, right? But when you contemplate and you look at the science, you'll be amazed that there's an incredibly intricate life support system keeping you like perfect balance. Like, one of the things that make me laugh, right, is there's like this literal force field around the earth called the magnetic force field, which deflects like solar radiation. It's nuts. Like, there's an actual force field, right? And that's just one of the many things. Okay, so when you realize it's incredibly delicate, I'm gonna go into another thing. When I said the word delicate, did you know like when you blow a bubble and you look at the bubble, and you kind of, when you look at it really carefully, you can see it's all swerving around, and some that's the earth. Do you know, like, if you look at the earth, there's stuff, and the atmosphere is incredibly thin. We're living in a little bubble. That's how delicate it is. People don't have no idea, right? So we live in a very perfectly well orchestrated organic system that keeps us alive. Okay, there are no accidents. The more you realize, the more you contemplate this is scientific, but you have to be aware and honest to that, right? So once you realize there are no accidents, and that's just a kind of theoretical way, like when you start living in a way that's more godly, you realize, and you do, I'm sure, right? You'll realize, oh, there are no accidents. The more you depend on God, all sorts of crazy stuff will happen. It's happening to me all the time. I don't know, some crazy stuff happening right now. Like, my landlady's died. That's not a good thing for her. Actually, I'm not even sure what's happened to her. Like, we're not paying rent at the moment. Just another crazy thing that happened in my life. No, crazy is normal for me, right? Okay. So you realize that there are no accidents. That's the whole point of all of what I just said. You feel like saying something?
Yeah, we've talked about this previously, but I disagree. I think while everything was perfectly designed by God for our survival and what He intends for us, I agree with that. I believe that God also put in randomness and our freedom of choice. And both randomness and freedom of choice means that the future is uncertain. That's why, in my belief, when someone comes in and does something bad, like kills and rapes a family, that's got nothing to do with God. God didn't intend for that to happen. That wasn't always going to be like that. That was to do with humans choosing to be bad, and that was not that. Because God gives us that freedom, He doesn't intervene with these things, right? That's why those things happen. But what God is constantly trying to do is to communicate with us through prophets and visions and messengers to try and pass on a righteous path. But He doesn't. I don't think He physically goes in and changes the scientific rules of our reality.
I don't think he needs to. Okay, he doesn't need to change the scientific laws at all. So the question I'll ask you is, what is the value of God making something random that he doesn't even know that's going to happen? There's no value in that, right?
No, I'd say the value is that this is a test, right?
No, no, but the randomness. Okay, let me put it another way. Like you might see it as random, which is good for your perspective because you or not random, but like how do I put it? Because it's completely obvious in my mind. Okay, it's like when we're relatively ignorant, a lot of people thought like mutations are random. Okay, now we're learning that they're really not random. Like some studies are coming out, like parts of they're looking at. I don't want to go into too much, but they're realizing mutations are random. Okay, like because people believe in evolution being random, and all the science is saying no. Like we thought it was random because of a lack of knowledge and lack of awareness. We got pea-sized brains, so our awareness is very limited. What I'm saying is, it doesn't. What you're one of the reasons. So on one side, you think it's random because of your relative lack of awareness compared to God, right? And the other reason why you believe that is because you think that the control that God has means that you don't have free will. And I'm not saying I'm saying you do have free will, but you don't realize how well it's orchestrated. You don't see the train tracks, as it were. You don't have to.
I just can't see how. So I can't see we can't have free will and a design at this and a designed life. It
I'm
would
just saying there are options, but they're a lot more limited than you realize.
if that was the case, Khalid, then God, when He first started the universe, the whole
Hmm.
everything, because He can see forwards and He's already everything what will happen. It's all by design. Then God already knows that millions and billions of babies are going to be aborted. He knows about that Nazis are going to build places to just gas people and kill innocent kids. And honestly, if that was God, he would just abort that whole thing. Like, why would he want? What would be the point of all of that? There is no lesson to be had if it's all by design. If you've already there's no point of running the simulation if you already know everything that's going to happen. I
So there's
gen
two things you're saying there. You're
Yeah.
saying knowing the answer to the simulation and allowing evil to happen, right? And so,
Designing evil. It's not even about knowing it. You're saying it's by design, like it was going to happen anyway. But that means
um,
design something to be evil.
so I will give a short answer. The Quran talks about this in the beginning of the Quran. It talks about like the angels saying, "Why are you going to create human beings who are going to create bloodshed and disorder?" Literally, the words they there's kind of like a weird kind of conversation that kind of happened. Let's just say, without going into too much detail, um, to illustrate some ideas for human beings to understand what's happening. And basically, in short, God says, like, yes, there's going to be lots of destruction, but the beauty that's possible, that's not possible in any other way, is worth it. Okay. And there's many other answers. Maybe that sounds terrible and whatever. Like, why would all that harm and whatever? I kind of don't want to go into suffering too much, but let's just say, uh, do you remember teething when you were a child?
What's that again? Say that again.
Teething, like when your teeth were coming out when you were like
I don't,
2 years
I
old.
don't,
Do you
I
remember?
don't remember. I don't remember. Do you
You
remember that?
don't, no, I don't remember it, right? That's the point I'm gonna make, right? Like,
Oh,
but it was probably really bad. Like you've got some small kids, right? It was really
yeah.
bad, but you forget it, right? Okay. In comparison to our eternal life, which would be a lot happier, people might say this is a cop out, but it's not, right? There are some pains that are worth the potential progress, and bad things happen, but every human being will forget that. There's a hadith that says that the person who suffers the most pain, he will be asked to come and he'll be dipped into heaven for 1 second, and he'll be asked, did you suffer anything? And said, no, God, I didn't, because it was so in uh, in what's the word?
Comparable.
Incomparable, yeah, compared to the joys of the hereafter. So God is kind, let's just say. So that gives a brief answer, but it's not the real topic. But it's kind of relevant to the topic, like understanding our place in the world and how passion works. Because people think passion, this is the kind of thing I was working towards, right? People think they have to search their whole lives to find the passion, the thing that makes them passionate, right? But it's all right. Your face is entertaining right now. It's all
Um,
right. I'll keep talking as if I can't see your face. It's all right. Okay. The thing is, passionate people are always passionate because like they follow the things that have come their way, and that leads them to an increasingly more passionate lifestyle. Let me explain it. Maybe that's very sort of spiritual, and I want it to be like as concrete as possible. Um, let's say you make good choices. Okay, this is another thing that there's a verse of the Holy Quran that says along the lines of every moment will be better than the previous one. Okay, for people essentially who follow God's way. Logically, that makes sense. Why does it make sense? Because what you're doing is you are making more positive steps than negative steps. God's way is just the rule book of life of how it actually operates. Like people who don't want to listen to God, they're trying to make their own rule book of life, right? They're saying, oh, if I make loads of money, then I'll be happy. If I have sex with loads of people, I'll be happy, right? They're making up their rule, but they don't work. Celebrities always prove that. You have loads of they're all on drugs and whatever and doing bad things, and some of them actually get out of it, like what's his name, Branson, Richard, no, not Richard Branson, the other guy. He's got long hair, he does lots of podcasts now. Russell Brand, right?
Russell Brand's doing good. He's recovered. He's
recovered. My point is, he was on the Sun newspaper for 2 years straight for being the person who had the most sex with the most people, right? And he said that didn't make him happy. You see, so what I'm trying to say is celebrities keep demonstrating all these theories we have about our selfish ways that we think will make us happy, but then there's God's way, which always keeps proving to be right. Even famous psychologists end up, like Viktor Frankl, end up saying the things that religion has always taught us, which is we need a meaningful life. That's the only way to be happy.
And not just religion, ancestors. People now in the last 100 years, they think they know more, they're more wiser than tens of thousands of years of ancestors who have always done it this way. One person to one man to one woman, where marriage is. It's been like that for thousands of years. Yeah, in the last 100 years, we've lost our minds. We've degenerated. We're losing touch with our humanity. I don't know what we're becoming.
I tell you what's happened. We're not good at making choices. Okay, so before we didn't have a choice. Women had to get married, otherwise they won't survive. They wouldn't even live. Okay, they needed protection, all this kind of stuff. But when we get the choices, we're not good at making them. That's why you have people who are really poor. When I go to Africa and whatever, they're way more happy when they have less choices. But when we have more choices, it's actually really hard to make the right choices. So we make bad choices, and therefore we're depressed. So I think that's basically what's happening. And so hopefully we're going to learn something. Hopefully some people are going to learn, and they'll realize, what we did by accident was actually the really, really good way. But that's a whole different thing, I suppose. Yeah, I'm always trying to refocus to keep providing lots of value of what we're saying.
I don't think it was an accident, though. I don't think it was an accident. The reason all our ancestors are like that, right, and all the tribes across the world, is because that was the model that worked. Any other model, like the one we're doing now in the West, it degenerates and society breaks down, and that creates a weak culture, a weak society that becomes godless, and it's going to destroy itself, like the Roman Empire.
Yeah, actually, so what you're saying there is that actually it wasn't like just an unbroken chain of good actions. There were lots of mistakes made, and then things collapsed and went really badly, and then they had to relearn from that and then start again, and
Yeah,
then yeah, go around in circles, you know. Um, so yeah, so okay, what's the other thing that I really want to say? So I'm gonna. This is one of my favorite things. I said this yesterday when I was wearing my colourful T-shirt in the Eid, and everybody else was wearing like boring stuff, even though they really didn't want to wear the boring stuff, right? Somebody goes to me, "You look like you're on holiday," and I said, "Yeah, you should live like you're on holiday every day." And she goes, "Yeah, you're right." Okay, and this is based on one of my favorite sayings. It's a combination of have I pasted it? I'm not sure if I've got it, but I might have to paraphrase it. I'm going to say a couple of them put together because I haven't pasted it, or maybe I was about to paste it and I forgot to. um, this is my favorite one. Okay, what is the world to me? What am I to the world? Verily, the parable of myself and this world is that of a rider who seeks shade under a tree, then he moves on and leaves it behind. Now, that sounds really horrible at first, but let me put a picture. Let me describe it. And it goes along with another saying, if it helps. Um, and it goes, be in this world as if you're a stranger or a traveler along a path. If you make it to the evening, do not wait for the morning. If you make it to the morning, do not wait till the evening. Take from your health and from your sickness and from your life and from your death. So if you didn't really understand what I'm going to try to paraphrase it and put those two couple of ideas together. It's like live like a traveler. What does a traveler do? Why that when you go traveling, you'll notice that you will go, oh my God, look at that little pot there. And that little thing there, and you'd be like, "Ah, oh, it's amazing." I love love TED talks, and somebody described being a traveler is like being a child on caffeine, right?
yeah,
You're like fresh to the world. You don't take things for granted, and you're hyper focused on these little details. Little things are the big things, right? Okay, so be like a traveler, and what it helps to know that you're not going to be here forever. Then it hyper focus alerts you about that. Yeah, that's what when you're, let's say you go to Turkey or something, I don't know, some foreign place, right? Because you know you're there for a short while, you appreciate it more.
yeah, yeah,
Same thing about this life. Makes a difference, right? You create the awareness of that. But then the other part of this, and it's about the traveler who rests under a tree. For me, that's really powerful. Like you might say, well, okay, what we do that actually ruins our experience of life is that we try to get comfortable. And we
yeah,
spend so much time getting comfortable that we stop living.
yeah. We fear discomfort. We stop taking risks.
Yeah. And you end up living so boring. Like my family at Eid, they were like, they have to wear this clothes, they have to wear matching with somebody else, wear this uncomfortable clothing, say the stuff they're supposed to say, right? That's dead. You're dead already. Forget, you're not living, you're dead, right? You might be smiling, but you're not. You're not really, you're not enjoying it, right?
Yeah,
So, like, get comfortable with being discomfort, and if I was again not filtering, like some of the best places, I'll tell you the two best places I've slept, and I really genuinely, this comes to my mind, right? Once in Gambia, right, and under my pillow there's a whole colony of ants. I didn't really care, didn't harm me at all, right? Okay, and then in this country I was sleeping with a bunch of boys. We're doing this project, right? And literally the whole place was full of spiders. We were sleeping amongst spiders. They could have gone in our ears, but for some reason they just left us alone, right? Everybody was chilling, like thousands of spiders around us. They're like really minuscule ones, right? Like, okay, do you know what I mean? So Those are kind of things like you think you need all the fancy stuff and a million cushions, whatever. No, you're dead. You're living that life. You're dead already, right? Okay, so that helps you live a life of passion when you're not fearful and trying to waste your time trying to get comfortable. But I want to keep bringing up new things. So we were talking about just before we started talking. And I will try to wrap it up sooner than later, right? Okay, just we don't need to make this forever, right?
Yeah.
Things are not as we would like them to be. That's what we were talking about. This is a thing that I'm not practicing explaining, but things are actually how they're supposed to be, according to where you are in your development. I'm gonna cuss you right now, right? Okay, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna say how much money you earn, but you earn like 10 times what I earn, right? Okay, but I know loads of people who earn loads more than me, and they're trapped by their stuff, right? And I was like, oh man, how can you say that? Yeah. So you are it's not somebody else, it's you. Yeah, and your wife is going, how much do you earn? Or will you earn? It's not enough. Okay. Even the fact that it came out of your mouth that you said it's not enough and I'm whatever, then that's where you deserve to be right now. And there's a lesson to be learned. And if I could somehow get this, I'm going to fail probably, but maybe 1% I'll get this across. Okay, is that everything that's happening to you is supposed to happen to you. You're supposed to learn, and you're in that situation not by accident, but you're supposed to learn, and then things will get better when you learn from that lesson, and zero accidents, which is something we've been debating for ages. But maybe that long sidetrack might make a difference. Yeah, so it comes back to this idea of, I mean, do you agree? Let me ask you a question. Do you agree if you make enough good choices, things will get better?
Yeah, 100%. Like making loads of good choices over a long period of time, that's what improves your life. However, bad things do happen, or random accidents, or just ill health that can reset that or set that back. But obviously, had you not made those good choices in the first place, you'd have less of a buffer to withstand that, both mentally, financially, with your friend circle. And then the more bad choices you make, the less of a buffer you have to weather the storm, right? But the storm always comes, and yeah, building up those good choices is what's going to improve your survivability and coming out with the best outcome.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So let's just say there's some other guy out there and they're saying, oh, only bad stuff happens to me. Life is unfair. What would you say to that person?
Sorry, say that again.
If somebody was out there, some bloke, and he's always complaining, right? And he goes, life's unfair. All the bad stuff happens to me and everybody else is lucky. What would you say to them?
I'll say to them, there is some unfairness in life, but having that attitude is going to hold you back. And what you want to do is obviously move forward. So you need to focus on taking positive action and stop talking yourself down, I guess.
So, okay, I've worked with a lot of people who, like, especially when I used to work with kind of what they call it, poorer people. And there were like some people who are just constantly, there's so much violence in their life. Like they'll be like, what did you do to your hand? Oh, I just, somebody knocked my car and I smashed my hand through their window and started punching them. And like, okay, another day. It's normal for you, sort of thing. But he said, he would say stuff like, everybody's violent. That's why I have to have a knife in my sock and blah, blah, blah. Right. I'm trying to go to extreme situations I don't think you relate to, right? So that you can go, I'm hoping you're going to say, you know what, that guy's probably making some bad choices, right?
There definitely is some of that, but look I'll give you an example, right?
Yeah.
Andrew Tate. Okay, I don't know how much you know about him, right?
Hmm.
But he's being shut down and cancelled, right? And I don't care what people say or do. It's got nothing to do with what they he's being set up by the evil forces, the people that work for the devil, the same people that are pushing these weird things on children at the moment, right? He's being shut down by them because he was a counter narrative. Now you can't say he made a bad choice. He he's just being attacked because he's one of the good guys. And but that's my point. I'm saying some people can make the right choice, like believing in God, and because of making those right choices, they could get persecuted and have bad things happen. And you can't say, "Oh well, it's because you were sticking up for your religious beliefs. That's why bad things happen to you." That's not a bad choice.
Okay. So I suppose, okay, so without filtering too much, Andrew Tate, love the guy, but he's no angel. Um, and also some things are what he needs to go through. Maybe this just sounds like excuses, which is or not easy to explain. Let's just say that's why I try not to talk about too many other people other than your experience. But that's, yeah, for me it's not so hard. It is hard to explain, but I can see it. Like he okay, I'll put it this way. I would say there are people doing far more good than he is, yet they're not being put in prison. And some people, okay, I'll give you an interesting situation. So the Khalifa that I follow, right? Um, he was. This is not 100% common. It's very common though for Ahmadi Muslims, where put on. Just say, can I hear? You can hear me though. I don't mind if your camera is off, but you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you. Sir.
Yeah. Cool. So he was put in prison, and there was a recording of him when he was actually coming out, or maybe in prison as well, and his face was like having a great time. Okay, he was in a hard cell floor, whatever, nothing good there. He could have been executed at the end of it, because that's what happens to Ahmadi Muslims in Pakistan, right? You don't know what's going to happen to you, right? Suppose my point is, yeah, it's hard one to explain, but it's something around there. It's just like everything happens for a reason. People, but I don't think you like to happen. Everything happens for a reason. Things. I'm trying not to go there, right? But people do manage, and yeah, I'm not even going to try to go there too much. I'm just saying. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there for now, right? Because I want to whack through as many different possible ideas that might help somebody out there, right? So maybe that idea won't help somebody, but something else might help somebody, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, here's another thing, like I said, which is the opposite of what everybody thinks is about how to be passionate, right? I don't get excited. So, like you asked me, like, oh, it's a month before you moved to Jordan, whatever, right? I don't need to get excited because I'm excited every day. But my excitement is not the usual pleasure sort of thing. It's the inner peace of knowing I'm doing the right thing and I'm really engaged. And that's what passion means. If you think about it, what do you imagine being passionate? How does that look like to you? It's about being engaged. You don't have to, like, you could be passionate and be looking like this, like working hard on something. That's passion, right? Because you're engaged in something that's meaningful. And really, it's all comes back to the thing I said right in the beginning. It's only one thing: live a meaningful life. But what does that mean? I would just tell you it's a godly life. God has set down the rules, but if you want to make it complicated, you could try to figure it all out yourself. But or another simple way is just be a good person as much as you can, right? You will find you're much happier. And an honest person. So you're actually listening to the cues, of what life is telling you. Like maybe you thought that was good, but here's better or something like that, right? Okay, so I don't get excited, and one of the reasons I'm not excited is because I'm not attached to outcomes. So this is one of the things that makes people depressed, is because they say, if this happens, then I will be happy. If I get that, then I'll be happy. Like the whole Jordan plan could fall flat on its face 1 second after, anything could go wrong, right? I'm not attached to certain outcomes. I'm doing the right thing every single day, just trying to make the world a better place. Go on.
Is what you're basically trying to explain is stoicism.
I hate stoicism.
Isn't that what you're explaining now?
It sounds like it, doesn't it? I'm glad you said that, because I cuss stoicism, right? Stoicism is identifying the problems, not knowing the solutions. Okay, that's what I've gone through like different examples. They'll say stuff like, what did I say? Have I got some notes somewhere here? Because I was going to do one, but maybe you've done it already. Yeah, there was Ryan Holiday. He's like his 3 favorite things, Stoic quotes or something. What do they say? Yeah, they'll say don't be attached to anything. Maybe something that's a typical thing they might say, something like along those lines. I can't remember the exact quotes. Okay, but they won't tell you how to overcome it. Maybe I haven't here. Okay, the way not to be attached, you don't need to be attached to an outcome if you think what you're doing right now is really good and powerful and important and beautiful. Done. You're happy all the time. You don't need a particular thing to happen, right? And you might say, oh, then why are you going to Jordan? And that's really important. This is really, really important. The reason, it's not the thing you do, it's the reason you do it. Okay, and again, this is an Islamic idea, but people don't realize the value of the Islamic idea. So there's an Islamic idea which is deeds are judged by motives. And then people just paraphrase that, right? But they don't contemplate on why that's really powerful. Like if you don't worry about the deed itself, but why you're doing it, amazing, everything can be amazing. So this is something I really want to talk about as well, which is people have loads of jobs they hate. Like I talked to a guy who literally had started feeling anxiety because he had to go back to his job that he hates. And I said, if you look for the good you could do in your job, you'll start enjoying your job a lot more. Okay, like he worked in B&Q. It was like, but he literally avoided the customers because he hated talking to people. Like if he actually tried, and there's loads of people like that, right? It's normal. People like that, right? Increasingly in the Western society. I'm not just talking out of my backside. I used to be a checkout person. Okay,
Yeah.
and I would fall asleep after 1 minute because my brain is hyperactive and it needs to do something interesting, right? So the way I would deal with that is I would make interesting conversations with people on the checkout.
Yeah.
Okay, but not just interesting conversations about them, not about stuff I want to talk about what they want to talk about. And the result was I would have the slowest queue checkout, but it turned out that people would join my queue just to have a conversation with me. Right? I literally, I mentioned once, so it was just in passing, some lady goes to me something like, she was saying it's good that you talk to people, and I was saying, yeah, but my queue is the slowest. And then she went to the manager and said, this is the best checkout guy, and I got a prize or something. Not that I care about it, but right? Whatever. Yeah, it's good to make people's lives better, and then your life becomes better as well. It makes a difference. Like if you wanna become skinny, for example, don't do it out of selfish reasons. Do it out of some sort of selfless reason, like making the world a better place. But that's kind of a bit of a sidetrack. So one of the things I want to talk about is how you can turn your boring job into a meaningful job, and that's by finding the meaning in it, if there is any meaning. And then what you do is, because you're looking at meaning more, you start finding meaningful jobs after this job. But if you don't give a crap about the world, you're blind and you're going nowhere anyway. So you start after opening your eyes anyway, right? At least open your eyes to the small good things. What else? Growth is happiness, is passion, is a comment I put to some like happiness gurus talk about that kind of stuff, and that's pretty important. But how do we find the growth? Growth is by doing useful things. People don't realize that. People think passion is like, this is again the upside down nature of Western mindset, which is making them so depressed. Most people think passion is about finding something really selfish to do that you can indulge in. Actually, it's about finding something that you can help other people in, and that's how you grow as a human being. So hopefully people are like switching their way of thinking from selfish to selfless. That will change everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do in my new career. So I'm gonna hopefully take up a manager position, and I'll have 2 people under me, and then I hope to find like passion in training them and teaching them.
And doing it well, yeah. Yeah, good. What was it? Thinking. Yeah, I suppose I just go through the thing that's next on the list, which is thinking you'll be passionate after you have money. Like one day when I've saved enough money, then I'm going to live a passionate life because I'll have tons of money. So I'll be able to do something because I'll finally be free. The problem is you'll be dead by then. When I mean by dead, not physically dead, you'll be such a pet and so scared of being a human being that you won't know. You would have driven all the freedom out of your personality.
And not only that, money's not guaranteed. Take it from someone who's made loads of money in short periods of time and then seen it all crumble in even quicker speeds. Like one thing I've realized, one thing my 20s I spent grinding and saving and like skipping beers with friends to save that 20-30 pounds because I saw it as like freedom bucks. And yeah, I did well. Like by 26, 27, I had like 100,000+ saved, and which is great for that age.
Freaking amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and I hit 300 grand like at 28. 80,000 of that was my parents helping me out, and then it all came crumbling down, and now I'm like, well, I missed out on my 20s. There's so many friends I could have gone out and seen and drinks, and well, I guess at the time as well, maybe I saw that stuff as a bit superficial, like,
and maybe it was superficial in some ways, some of it,
yeah, like I was never really a fan of going for a quick drink. It was like it's a drug addiction. Maybe if it was bowling, I would have definitely gone, right?
Something else that you could have worked towards, like making more meaningful friends, like Speaker's Corner and whatever it is.
Yeah, or having a hobby like going skiing or ice skating or climbing. There's a lot of things I could have done, but I was more reclusive, saving money, concentrating on investing. And looking back at it now, it's like money's never guaranteed. You could lose it. It does buy happiness. It definitely look like there's a lot of things that money does help with. Better schooling, just there's a lot of things a lot of problems that money can deal with.
And well, I'll tell you, I mean, this is a funny thing. I'm not against making money, right? But all the rich people I know, their problems multiply with money. Like their kids become more stupid because they don't understand the value of money. I just talk to people like that all the time, right? So there's a lot of things like that. So I'm just saying money is not your solution.
Even that, right? I actually don't think that's got to do with the money. I think the kids became stupid because those people probably used money to do the parenting. So whenever the kid needed help with studies, rather than sit down and teach them themselves, they probably gave them bought them tuition classes, right? Rather than spend time with them and take them out for family time, they probably just gave them money and stuck them in a club somewhere. And then you lose
That's
that parenting barrier.
yeah. I think we're all
This is that thing about you saying choices. The more choices you give people, the more likely they are to make mistakes. Well, money gives you a lot more choices in life.
yeah, and I'm even guilty of it, right? So like we're not rich, but now that we can easily like my big kids have got their own phones, and when they're own phones, they're like in the bedroom watching TikTok instead of talking to me, for example. And I'll be like, please get out of your bedroom, please talk to me, please whatever, right? But that's I don't want I want to be one of those people who are blaming. I'm like I can see it, like even though with the little money we have, right? And then also the problem related to that, this way of thinking that one day we'll save enough money, then I can be free to do cool stuff, is that they think about the big stuff as this, it's going to make them happy, but it's not. Okay, in fact, let's say Elon Musk, right? He's doing really big, cool stuff. He's not a happy guy at all. Okay, if you listen to his interviews, you're like, oh my god, I wish I could switch it off. And he says things like his projects are like eating glass, staring into the abyss. That's what he describes his projects as: eating glass, staring into the abyss, as if he's going to fall. That's how.
Well, but
Okay,
I think that's his passion, though. It's because he cares so much. Elon Musk could easily sell out and have tons of billions and like not have to worry about all these companies and I never have to worry about money. But I mean, he already kind of tried that. He tried that with when he first sold his first company. He bought like fancy cars and all that, and then he realized that's not what made him happy. And like he sold all his houses and got rid of all these materialistic things. And now,
well, he kind of invested everything so that he's got nowhere to live, sort of thing. He's kind of all in. And I'll quickly put it like this: is that we like to paint people in a simple way, okay? But actually, he's not a hero. He's a nice guy, and he's got some honesty, which is why we like him. Like, he speaks out to people, like the Twitter recent was it BBC interview about Twitter, and they tried to say why do you have why have you removed the COVID policy, and why like there's lots of things where he's honest about, right? So I'm not saying I love the guy as well, right? But I don't paint him in a simple way like most people like to, because it's easier to view the world in simple ways, right? He's the guy who by his own admonition says he wishes he could switch it off, but he can't. What it is, if I was trying to simplify it, he's suffering from a sort of depression. And his depression is he doesn't know how to live any other way than this way to live for something exciting. And somebody put it really well recently, that there are a lot of white, rich, privileged people who are bored and they need to do something, and there's nothing better than saving the world, which is a bit rude, but there's a lot of truth in it. And what Elon Musk is missing, and I'm not just insulting him because it's really hard for people to know what this thing is, right? He needs to find spiritual truth, and he's getting there. He used to be an atheist, and he's beginning to believe in God. And he said things like, he said in one of his Joe Rogan interviews, the only thing is love. Like he's kind of realizing what really matters, and he's finally getting some grounding. I
yeah,
think that's my picture of him.
yeah, and he's become pro-humanity, wanting people to have more children and so on.
Yeah, and also you have to remember his background. I won't go too much, but you have to remember his background. His pretty troubled background. His dad was an alcoholic. He was left in the house for ages, nothing else to do. It scars you, makes you want to, I don't know. yeah, it's hard to whatever. Yeah, and he's got lots of family background problems that they don't talk about. They never talk about his trans child. You know, they don't talk about you know. I think he's got some sort of rules about things he will talk about on his interviews. So people shouldn't go over the top and think people are like godlike characters. I don't want to take up much more time, so I'm going to pick one more thing. And most of the things I've talked about. Yes, this is the thing that really. This is one more thing that really made a difference to me personally. Okay, and the thing is, there's no time limit. Okay, so let me explain that. So I used to have all sorts of finishing lines in my mind. Like, I have to make this project a success, otherwise, in 2 years' time, otherwise, it's not a success. And that's exactly what ruins your experience of passion. There's some great talks by some guy called Simon Sinek. Ever heard of him? He talks about Start With Why. Yeah, do check him out. Simon Sinek, Simon. Simon is easy. Sinek, Sinek. Really good guy. He's written some absolute fundamental ideas will change your life, right? And I don't think he's just an honest guy who's tapping into spiritual realities, as should I put it in a simple way. He's written 2 books. One is Start With Why, and the other one is The Infinite Game. Right? These are fundamental to religious teachings, I would say. Okay, why is the reason for everything. If you have the right why, things work out. God is all about why. Why are you doing this? Right? Okay, he's done some fantastic TED Talks about how the most passionate, most exciting people work. They start with why, and then the how and the what are just the details, right? That's one thing. Yeah. You have to know a why to get through any how, as it were, like Nietzsche says, essentially. And that's also. Then there's the infinite game idea, right? Basically, life, God has made you, at least from an Islamic point of view, as part of an infinite journey towards God. Like, when you get to heaven, that's not the end. That's just another part of the journey. You just keep going, right? Becoming incredibly more beautiful. And that is inbuilt into you. So it's the people who are most successful, and I can't explain it as well as Simon Sinek has, but he basically said business is an infinite game. You don't really, I'll probably explain it really badly, but this is the thing that's really powerful in my life. As soon as you think there's a finishing line, you're in big trouble. You don't finish until you're dead. It's I'll just give you one example and then I'll finish it. Like these live streams, right? I'm enjoying them way more than I did in a previous incarnation of this project, where I was always trying to do the project so I could give it to somebody else to take over, and that never happened, right? But now I'm enjoying it because I'm not looking at a finishing line. I've decided. So what my spiritual leader said, this is what you're going to do. And I decided when he said that I'm going to do it until I'm dead. That's it.
Yeah.
And now I'm enjoying it. And I don't care about the number of views. In fact, I know when I go to Jordan, or I expect when I go to Jordan, my views are going to plummet and I don't care too much. Because I'm getting like a core of good people who do care about changing their lives. In Speaker's Corner, I got like a good following. Maybe that was good, has its benefit, right? Yeah. But I've got a lot of stupid people as well. Not to insult them too much. Like I have the more insults I get, like on the video, the more views I get. That's not a good thing. That means that like I'm getting stupid people watching it as well, right? So. Right. I'm rolling my eyes when that happens. Personally, I don't get excited when they're like, "Oh, you're stupid," whatever. I'm like, "Oh, I'm bored." People laugh because they think because I don't react, because I really don't care what they say. Like, you're just like a child insulting me. You're making me. I'd rather have an intelligent conversation like I have with you.
Yeah, I mean, the laughs on them anyway, because they're the one wasting their time listening to a conversation that they're not taking anything positive from.
Mm.
They're
Yeah.
just in their lives, really.
So you tell me one. I'm going to be a teacher here because I really want to feel like something good has come out of this. Tell me something you liked about this conversation. One thing you learned about. What do you learn that would maybe different to, and it might help everybody else as a sort of summary. Do you feel like you learned something or experienced something that was different to what you thought in the beginning of the chat that
No,
might help you in your life becoming passionate every day?
yeah, the interesting thing is about you talking about excitement and stuff, and I get you. You're right. There's always this like finish line and end goal that I personally as well put my mind to, like, oh, this number, or this house, or retirement, or this holiday. And you're right. You shouldn't look at things like that. You shouldn't look at end goals. You should just do what you're trying to say. It's easier said than done, I must say, but you should just practice it every day. And just like the teachings are right. You just take every day as it is. Live your day as it's your last. And look, I've realized this. Like when I came out of my hospital, right? I was like, oh, I want to get out. I want to live life. I took my wife restaurant. I was like outgoing. Like, yes, like everything is so amazing.
I remember because you messaged me. Yeah, go on, yeah.
And then like few days go by and it just wears back down. It's like, how do you keep that level
But
of,
because you aimed at, what was my response? You were aiming at the wrong thing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you remember what I said. I vaguely remember it, but yeah.
But it is like the human brain is like that. I think the thing is, I think our survival instincts are goal oriented. It's just how our brain is for survival. Back in the harsh days, you had to like look forward through the winter when food is like depleted, and you're like, don't worry, summer's coming soon. We just gotta get through this. And I think it's part of our instinct. Like,
Well, actually, it's called the dopamine. I can't remember. Let's because it's a dopamine system. People think you get dopamine from consuming or eating. Actually, most of your dopamine, most of your happiness comes from working towards something. Doesn't matter about achieving it. Achieving is not the thing.
it's seeing the progress.
Yeah,
That's
working towards something meaningful. It's amazing.
hard to see progress these days because you're stuck in this cycle that's been designed as so rigid and evil. If you think about it, they put you in debt from as soon as you turn 18. As soon as you're an adult, you're in debt with your student loans.
Mm.
And then,
See, but you know what I'm like? I'll be cussing you now because of the way you're talking. You're like, it's their fault. I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're all victims.
we are. I'm just saying the system now is set up in a way where you are going to work, coming home, paying bills, and back in the days it was different. The progress wasn't about paying your bills. Your progress was about, oh, I did the farm. I fed my kids. They're 1 year older. We've gone through the year. I've managed to make my kids 1 year older. I'm successful. And that's how it used to be. It was just all about bringing up our families and our kids. Now
Don't
we're
worry.
in
There's no used to be. Everybody's been miserable in history. There's only a few people who are smart enough to be happy.
yeah, you're probably right there. You're probably right. They probably had their own misery.
Different problems, and
Yeah.
it's not, it is hard. If you think about it as one thing, I'm going to suddenly be happy, that's impossible. But what's easy is making a little bit of progress, and just try this out. Everybody just try this out. I love this thing that Jordan Peterson said, just to kind of, you have to have your bar low enough to make success, because
Yeah.
if you have it too high, you never achieve it. You have to be honest and you will enjoy. This is another thing. I'm being greedy now, but it's kind of the same thing. Just like, if you be every day, do something in one direction of goodness, right? You would enjoy that, and you'll make a lot of progress. This is again the same saying of Allah. There's a saying in Prophet Muhammad, Allah likes people who I'm paraphrasing again now, but Allah likes people who do things consistently, even if they're small. And there's beauty in that. Try it. Just do things small and consistently. It won't even seem hard. You'll be like, wow, I'm actually feeling good about life. And there's a reason for that. It's kind of like you're telling your soul who you are. You're not what you do once a year. You're what you do every day, and you can't escape what your soul is telling you, what your conscience is telling you. If you're a selfish person, your soul knows it. And if you're a good person, you're doing something good every day and it's really small, and especially so small that you can't show off to anybody, that's even better. Because it's all about you're just doing it purely because it's a good thing. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. I feel like your wife's going to kill you, so I don't want you dead. I want you to make it to the next live stream. And your wife's a wonderful lady, by the way, I'm sure.
When I promised to take her out walking, I totally forgot about this, and then you obviously messaged me an hour before.
Let's end this right now. Take her out right now. Okay, bye, 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 bye. Bye. Did I end the stream? End broadcast. There we go.